Far-Flung Tin Can, we are bridging the gap between two diverse worlds, the Christian home and the mission field, through missions awareness, missions engagement, and worship in everything. We're traveling the world to the most remote places on the planet to find those who have laid down everything to say yes to God. And whoever said missions can't be fun? God is calling. Will you take the call?
Here we go. Bum, bum, bum. There's no theme music, so I gotta just bring it. I thought theme music just happened on the trip. Like, I thought it was like while we were going places, somebody had a boombox and we had theme music happening.
Because it's on the film.
Because it's on the film, it looks like everybody's like, woo, when I find you, you will be mine. And
what's the
in real life, they don't have your luggage. Joyce,
yeah,
whole 1 foot. She was the leader of our group. We didn't have to wait in any lines because we just pushed her wheelchair. Like, if I came to the Red Sea, needed to part it, I'm bringing Joyce's wheelchair. Because it's like, boom, open door. Open door.
Back in Ohio, I went to step out on my patio that I thought the step was just wet. It was not, it was ice. The ice won. I landed on concrete, whacked my foot on the step, and fractured it.
How many days before?
That happened on Wednesday morning, and we left Sunday night.
And how many weeks are you supposed to be in it?
At least 5 weeks in the boot, non-weight bearing as much as possible.
Well, where is it?
Still in the U.S. Still at JFK. So I have nothing. I've got what I got in my bag. So I left all my money.
No, you didn't.
Kyle's going to have to pay for everything.
My name is Jeremy, and I do youth pastoring here in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and I love it. I get to hang out with these kids every day. I also do media work here in Thailand. It's just hard it's a new generation, and we try to help by raising support for our ministry, sending out videos and everything like that, showing leadership to these young kids. You know, I wasn't always the best example, and God has changed my life, and I want to show them that you don't have to go into worldly things or anything like that to serve God. You start young and have a purpose in life. So we have weekly service every Friday. Monday, Tuesday we have a Bible study.
Jeremy was a lot like us, I think, because we connected through Josh Garcia. That's right. So they went to school, and he had a lot of stories about Josh. You can see, though, when he's like interacting with the kids, because he does a lot of the work with the kids at the school and the orphanage, and you can see how he really connects with them and wants to connect.
Well, the early days, so many of the villages did not have roads to them. And so you would take a road so far, and then you had to walk in. Some of them short distances, some of them several hours to get into them. So the housing back then was mostly very primitive. You had, you've seen these, either the little grass roof or that leaf type roof they have. Them bamboo floors, stuff like that. Very few villages had, running water. Nobody had electric. And so it was just very, very simple lifestyle that people had basically no income. I mean, it was just, they're called subsistent farmers. In other words, they subsist off of what they can gather, what they can grow, what they can hunt. So a lot of, sickness. Kids were, especially with the kids, what I noticed, scabies really bad, and just a lot of infectious sores and just all kinds of stuff.
And were you surprised to know that you were the first one to come back there?
Oh, some of the villages where first I thought they were pulling our leg, thought, well, they're trying to make the big white guy feel good or something, you know, like he's the, you know, first guy in. But then you kept hearing it village after village. Then you thought, wow. Then my thought was, what have missionaries been doing for the last 150 years? So why hadn't anybody been back here, you know? Coffee, we initiated that. It was for several years we had looked for something that could bring money into the ministry. We went through some of the traditional things, raising cows, pigs, chickens, frogs, raising mushrooms, everything under the sun. None of those really panned out, and we were actually in a jungle village, or a village one day, saw some coffee, and I knew what coffee looked like. I said, wow, some coffee plants, you know. And villagers gave me some, and actually took it home, tried to roast it in an oven, tasted terrible, and but it wasn't roasted proper, you know. And then I found out that, you know, wow, this is Arabica coffee. So we took a sample, sent it to the States, had it tested, and found out that it scored in the specialty coffee range. So we began to think, wow, this is something. The people know how to grow things. Coffee seemed to grow very well here. And many of the villages we're working with are in the altitude. And as we studied it out, we found out what coffee needed, and found out that many of our villages were in regions that could grow coffee. So it began as a small project, and it's grown and expanded. I think we're now almost 300 farmers in approximately 50 different villages that are in the coffee project, and it's growing every year.
Not only does it give income to the villages, it also brings in money to support the ministry. One of the things that Charlie talked about was, you know, a lot of people are looking at the here and now, but he's thinking about the future. He's thinking about long after he's gone, how is this ministry going to continue, the vision to, you know, continue to go forth, and that the coffee business is really something that will sustain the ministry and provide not only the ministry, but for the villages that they've connected with and have converted to Christ, for them to have longevity.
You know, he's teaching these farmers how to have a trade, a way to have income so that they can provide for their families, because, I mean, that's very much ministry. We can talk about Jesus and we can pray for people, but to be able to empower them to provide for their family is very important, especially when they're suffering and they're not bringing in income and they can't eat. To be able to come in with this tool and say, this is how you're going to provide for your family. With the 3 orphanages that they have that span within, I think, up to like 750 kids, you know, those funds got to come from somewhere. When he's selling coffee in the States and some in Thailand, proceeds of that go back into the orphanages to help the work that they're doing. And then in return, and the third people that they're helping is when Far-Flung's coffee shop buys coffee beans. So when you come into our coffee shop and buy a cup of coffee, you're helping the farmers, you're helping the orphans, and you're helping the work of Far-Flung as well. So it's really cool that he's established this multi-tiered system that's helping people on several different levels.
We're in a valley somewhere in Thailand picking coffee, and they're showing us which ones are ripe and which ones are not ready, and we're gonna pick them and we're gonna bring them back up on the truckload and process them.
Thailand coffee cherry beans, round 1. Bet Clark Beckham hadn't done this. It was a lot sweeter than I thought.
Is it sweet?
A lot sweeter than I thought. A big hard bean in the middle.
Guy, he's eating them.
They taste
No?
like these branches smell if one breaks.
You eat it? Coffee bean?
You know what it tastes like?
Yeah, coffee bean, that's okay.
That's okay?
Yeah.
At first I was like,
I was like super scared. I spit it out.
I said, I don't like being outside. I claim the appropriate heritage in the right situation.
Okay.
So it's like super hot. I'm like, I'm Canadian. I'm not used to this heat. And then when it's cold, I'm like, I'm Jamaican. It's too cold.
Yeah.
So it works. This goes back really
Dieter,
hard.
don't move.
Why? Why?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I hate you. I hate
water project, or we'll paint their school, or we'll do some type of social project in their village. So
Not evangelistic.
not
per se,
very,
in the-
very. We call it servant evangelism.
Sure.
We
Okay.
build toilets. We'll go in. Many of these villages don't have a single toilet.
Yeah.
So we'll do 2, 3, 4
you're not
different
talking about a
teams.
crusade.
No,
Yeah.
no, that doesn't work here.
Sure.
Crusade will not work until T.L. Osborne came back, and he could not. He could only draw 1,000 people. Now, years ago, he was sent out of the country because the government says if we don't stop this man, he'll turn Thailand into a Christian nation. That was 50-some years ago. Now, there were converts in that meeting that my best friend, or one of my best friends, is Achan Saman. He's almost 90 years old right now.
Oh, he was the what?
He's called the father of Pentecost here.
Okay.
He got saved in a T.L. Osborne meeting. Well, he went on to do, when T.L. and Daisy got kicked out, he went on and evangelized Thailand through miracles. He would come into villages like this that were totally animus,
Yeah.
and they would meet him with machetes and everything, and he'd say, "Is there anybody deaf here?" Or they would bring out a deaf and say, "If you don't heal him, we're after you." He said, "Bring him on in," and he'd pray over him. God would heal the deaf, and then the people come to Christ.
Yeah.
Now that was
Man.
50 years ago.
Okay. 50
Now
years later.
we've had some big name evangelists come in, and it's not working like that anymore. So the servant evangelism thing is what seems to be clicking right now.
Yeah.
We will come in, like we've had villages where we'll go in, build toilets. It might take 4 different teams to come in to finally get a toilet for every house. Back then, I didn't see this aspect of things. We had a team here. We took them out, did some stuff. They went back home, and the guy told me, he says, "Charlie, that one village we visited, nobody's got toilets. I want to build toilets for them." I'm thinking, give me a break. I got better things to do than build toilets, you know. I mean, we got to haul cement up a river on a truck, carry everything, up a river on a boat and everything. But because I know as pastor well, I say, we'll do it, you know. So we did it, right?
I've got better.
The next year or two later, Sue Wheat, he calls me up, says, "Charlie, remember such and such a village?" Which I didn't, because we go so many. I said, "Yeah, well, I don't know what happened." He said, "Well, the village came to Christ." "Oh, praise God." He said, "Yeah, they were so impressed with them toilets we built them that they all wanted to accept Jesus." I said, "You got to be kidding." So then I became the toilet evangelist. We must have built 1,000 toilets already, man.
Oh man.
So, I'm hardcore, or I'm old school. Come in, preach, give an altar call, and it wasn't working. And I'm like, what's going on? And I would cry and I would weep, and then God began to show me culture, and especially with tribal people. Tribal people, I don't care how good you can preach, you call these villages together and give an altar call, there's nobody gonna come forward unless you ask them to come forward to pray for them. They'll pray to get healed or something. But if you call them to come forward to make a decision on salvation, they will not come.
No.
Because what happens, the way tribal thinking, the way tribal culture is established, is you don't make that decision on your own. A family comes together, they sit with the elder of the family, they discuss it over, then they make a decision, and that elder decides, okay, we're going to accept Christ. That's how this village, as a family, then the whole village or the whole family will pray and accept the Lord. And they'll walk away from their animus, their spiritist ways, and they now become Christians. Now, in our thinking, we're thinking, is this just, an acknowledgement? But I've seen it in over 100 villages, we see this is how it works.
Okay, so when they come, they make that decision, they come, they're for real.
They're for real.
It's like legit.
Yeah, but they do it as a family.
We're here in a village. This is the village that they first went to in this region of the country that started really just growing and then building churches and things like that. So we're here today, and the church group from Oregon, they gave us some notepads and pencils and cookies to hand out to the kids in the kids' school here.
One of the things that we noticed, because really only one of the villages that we went to kind of had a mix of Christian and Buddhism going on, and it was just such a drastic day and night difference between two of the villages that we went to.
You could tell it was like warring, even in the physical. Like you ride down the road and you see like this big Buddha, and then you see like this Catholic school, and then you see, you know, basically the Christians, the Protestants there. And even talking with the pastor through the translator, he's just kind of like, you know, just pray for us. People, you know, Buddhists are trying to move in, and they have all the big and flashy things, and we just really need help. We need help. We need this. We need that. And it was very like needs-based. A lot of the kids were really dirty there, and it's just kind of, it felt very oppressed while we were there.
We noticed that they were very sick. They had scabs, and then we went to another village that was completely Christian.
For families who had been kicked out of their villages because of Christ, because they accepted the Lord, their animist village kicked them out, and so they lived in this village that we stayed in. It was just night and day. Like, people were filled with joy. I mean, people were playing together. It was so awesome to see Pastor Sweet and Garoom playing volleyball with these villagers out in this field that Charlie just bought.
It's now the most prosperous village in the entire region, and it's known for that. So it was really kind of shocking to see a visible difference between completely Christian villages and those that were not completely Christian.
First of all, we're talking probably 100 by 100 miles. It's a massive area that previously had no roads in, and yet a total of almost 100 villages. So it was a landlocked area where 3 counties met, but none of the counties invested to get roads into that, so it was a no man's land. The gospel came here 1985 when the first people came to Christ. First was one man from the village we were just at. He now pastors the church at this village. Back when they came to Christ, and shortly after that, 40 people came to Christ. Pastor Suwit, the guy we interviewed today, was one of that 40, okay? When they came to Christ, they got kicked out of that village, and they didn't know where to go because every village within 100 miles was an animist village. So they came down here and where we stand right here is where they established a church. Now, where we came today, I was a little shocked because the church is gone, and they're building a new church because they couldn't fit all the people. There's over 400 believers here in this village now. Back in the day, when the witch doctors said, this is an evil area, nobody can live here. So when the Christians got kicked out of the animist villages, they came to this supposed evil area, and because nobody would bother them here. The village has now become the biggest and most prosperous village in this entire region. It's phenomenal. There's over 400 believers here. The entire village is Christian, very dynamic Christians. I've known now the pastor here and Pastor Suwit for many years. But our involvement in this region came when we first built that little church up at Hui Manat. And it was one of our graduates that was from this village that evangelized that up there, started a small group of believers. And so we came up, dedicated that church. Then we did a clinic right here, just right on this facility. The people would come under here. We would diagnose them right here. We'd pray for them. The triage area was right over there. And that was when we had sent flyers out that we were doing a clinic, or not flyers, we just sent messengers out. And there was a group of villagers that had walked about 3 hours to get here. And when they came, they were literally the sickest people I've ever seen in Thailand. We've done a lot of clinics and stuff. And I mean, these people, children were scabs from head to toe. There's a little girl, I worked on her. She just had flesh rotted like almost to the bone. I had cut off it was like sponge, just rotted meat on. We've got paracetamol, which is Tylenol. We've got antibiotics. We got malaria medicine. We had stuff for dressing wounds. We had stuff for scabies. Real basic medical stuff. So, you know, we treat the people, and yet our hearts are heavy because we realize the medicine we have is not really sufficient for the need that we're facing. Why these people were so sick, the spirit doctor at their village told them they had to have their village in a certain area. There was no bathing water, there was no drinking water. So the people literally were just dying because of no water. And so we treated them and prayed over them. At our clinics, everybody has to go through prayer, laid hands on them, prayed for them, just believed. And when they left, they're happy, they, you know, got treated and all. And they said, well, only half the village came. They said, everybody else at our village is just like us, same condition. So I said, could you possibly give us some medicine to take back and give to the rest of the village? So we gave them everything. We said, yeah, anything we can do to help, we gave it to them. Okay, about a month later, Pastor Suweek gives me a call, says, Brother Charlie, says those villagers came out. They told me that everybody that came to the clinic that day got healed. I said, you're kidding. Yeah, I hate to say that because we prayed for them, believing, you know. But I said, you're kidding, you know. And the first thing out of my mouth, I said, even that little girl with the rotted meat on her eye? He said, yeah, her flesh just all dried up and began to grow back. I said, wow, that is awesome. And he said, well, that's not all. He said, remember you gave medicine to the village, and everybody in the village that took the medicine, not a single one of them got healed. And they said, the 3 representatives that have come out, what they told me, they said, we realize it wasn't the medicine you gave us, but it was the God that you prayed to, and we want that God to be our God. So we were able to lead that whole village to Christ, and that village has prospered and done well. But that opened up this whole region to us. And now we've been able to build 9 churches back here. We've just looked at the land there that we bought. We want to put dormitories on there, use that as an evangelism point to bring kids in and be able to minister to their families and stuff like that. So this village came about because anybody who came to Christ got kicked out of their village, ended up here.
The amount of villages that they've impacted and have changed for Christ is astounding, especially because it's not just individual people saying, yes, I say yes to Jesus. You are completely turning upside down an entire cultural and way of life in a village when you change it for Christ. It's not, Charlie was talking about how altar calls don't really work well in these environments because it's not an independent decision, like it's a family decision. Like we are all gonna serve Christ now. And oftentimes you're shunned and you're kicked out of your village if you're not going to serve the other religion. Those that have Christ at the center and they have Christ in everything that they do, I mean, they're thriving. And Charlie, I mean, he didn't even understand. It was really cool to be able to see that aha moment when Garoon was kind of explaining.
Actually, the home is, before they come into the Lord, is they build a small home. It's one purpose, in case they had to move. Easy to, tear it down and carry on to next village. Why they have prepared that is that the behind moving here and there is sometimes it's caused by spirit. Sometimes the spirit said you cannot live here. You have to go. So that's why they go. But after they become a Christian, they have freedom in God. I felt like what I saw is like the spirit kind of back off from them. Not bothering them anymore. So they can be in certain village for a long time. So you'll be there for a long time, the development will bring in, like road or pipe, water pipe or bigger house, permanent house.
To see them really building solid, structured homes and saying, this is my home, this is where I'm going to live because these spirits don't have control over me anymore.
Before, they've got spirits in this land and they're telling them don't build onto your house and don't do this and don't do that. It very keeps them in a trapped lifestyle. And as soon as Christianity is introduced, they have the freedom to grow and to have prosperity and to make the place better. And so very many times when Christianity comes to a village, building projects happen, and houses get bigger, and projects start, and churches get built, schools get, education gets better.
Far-Flung Tin Can is spreading the gospel and helping others in the most remote places on earth. Our work in Thailand is ongoing and you can be a part. Farflungtincan.com is a place to get plugged into missions. You can apply to join us on our monthly Far-Flung trips, or you can help send us to far-flung places by giving. Living Word International is producing amazing coffee that helps fund their orphanages. You can purchase this coffee at mythaicoffee.com.